Welcome back to Fite Sports Uncovered. I'm your host, Mark Joubert, and welcome back for part two. Yes, part two of our in-depth unpack into MASA and what they've been doing. First of all, who they are. If you were watching last week, you'll know a little bit more about who MASA is, who they represent, and what they do for all of the practitioners of amateur martial arts here in South Africa. Yes, I speak amateur martial arts because if you were listening last week, you will know that MASA looks after predominantly all the non-Olympic affiliated federations. They do have a professional block, but right now, not very active professional block, but they are hoping to get that up and running. And hopefully, from my side anyway, to see a far more active professional block would be great for mixed martial arts, judo, karate, taekwondo, all of the martial arts in South Africa. But carrying on our discussion, last week we spoke about the fact that COVID-19 has had a massive, massive impact on the local fitness industry. Contact sports per se is literally ground to a halt with the exception of a number of Zoom meetings. And I've experienced a lot of virtual championships taking place and finding out that Tangsudo also had their virtual championships in the last couple of weeks. Muay Thai have hosted theirs. Taekwondo have hosted a series of world championships. So many, many martial arts have been keeping relevant during this rather crazy, crazy time. But my guest, General Secretary of MASA, Gregory Hart. Greg, we were last talking about the fact that you had very limited time to act when the COVID Relief Fund was announced. We had a couple of days. We had to get that out to your federations, to your members. That all went. Most of the applications you assisted in putting through were rejected due to missing the deadline. Kind of bizarre when you're meant to be helping people. We got deadline sort of limitations. But that's all come and gone. We're in a situation now where the minister has allowed us to get back into training, into matches, and that's an exact sort of a reference to his letter that was sent out to you guys. The first part is getting those guys back, getting those gyms opened. It's not as easy as that letter led to believe. There are multiple sort of hoops and obstacles that need to be jumped through. Just very, very briefly, the last couple of days for you, what's that been like in getting this process together?
The last couple of days have been pretty intense. Lots of staying up late, lots of liaising with our various clubs and federations, making sure that the word gets out that we can get up and running, but that there are very strict protocols and guidelines that have to be followed. So for the last 6 weeks or more, we've actually had a COVID response team, which has consisted of 3 EXCO members plus a guy called Paul Cave, who's very influential in the martial arts of the Western Cape, has helped us tremendously with that. And the president, MASA President, Master Louise Vivier, set up that team. And we have worked under the guidance of our sort of tournament and safety director, Mr. Chololo. He's been influential in getting all the health and safety aspects up and running. And as you said before, that's a file of like 40 odd pages
Massive.
That needs to be sort of complied with. And fortunately, that's right up his alley because hosting any kind of national, international event these days, there is a huge health and safety file involved. And now that's just added a huge load on.
Can we call that an extra chapter?
Yes. So we, as I said, as early as 6 weeks ago, submitted a letter with guidelines that we thought were feasible for getting martial arts gyms up and running. Because just like has happened to all business in South Africa, sports business has taken a huge knock. And it's genuinely people's livelihoods and lives on the line. These people have got mortgages and car payments and kids to educate and feed and stuff like that. And now suddenly they've lost their means of earning a living. And there was not much warning. So some of us were able to get some Zoom and some other things up and running. A lot of areas don't have good enough Wi-Fi. And when you're locked down in a small space, you know, you can try and push the coffee table to one side and do something, but it's just not been ideal. So we have been trying to get martial arts up and running in a way that's safe for our members and safe for our instructors. So the consolation for the COVID has been that it doesn't seem to be too virulent amongst the youth. So at least we feel like our kids are less vulnerable than some of the other segments of our society. And so we feel that with masks, with social distancing, et cetera, and we felt martial arts was almost ideally suited to that, because we're happy to just bow. We don't even need to handshake, you know.
Yes, yes.
And as I said, the health and safety in martial arts has always been a huge thing. So the discipline has been there, and we felt that it wouldn't be difficult to get our studios up and running following certain strict guidelines. Now that's been a process and a procedure, and we had our team working flat out, pulling in information from all over the world. We've used information that we've garnered from what the Australian guys are doing. We've looked at the Health and Safety Gazette here in South Africa, what they're doing for the businesses. We looked at some of the guidelines that our sports minister put out, and we had to amalgamate all of that together into a workable document that would not make it too onerous. Yeah. Because as you said, it looks like you're going to have to jump through fire and 6 hoops and go left, and you're just trying to run a marathon. So we didn't want to put too many obstacles in the way of our gyms, in making it impossible for them to open up, because they just simply couldn't meet all of these crazy conditions. And also, we represent such diverse martial arts. We didn't want to dictate down to each different style exactly how then they needed to manage their operations. So we came up with a list of what we consider our non-negotiables, some of the things that I've mentioned, the personal protection stuff, the masks, the sanitization, the protocols, the social distancing, etc. And then we came up with the rest of our document is guidelines. If you have a home gym, these are what we suggest. If you're working out of another facility or venue, this is what you suggest, and so on. And that has been very successful, and the minister accepted what our federation had put together and gave us permission to open up. And then the next stage for me was then to get hold of all of our members, say to them, this is the conditions that the minister has given us. These are the documents that we prepared and submitted, and you need to now go and educate your instructors and your styles and see and find a way forward for your particular style that you can open up, keeping in mind all of these safety protocols that need to be in place. And that's what we've been busy rolling out with, at the moment, certification, and it's been managed by our members and us.
So looking at what you've now been doing and unpacking all of that information yesterday, all the federations linked to you, okay, are required to be issued with a compliance certificate. That compliance certificate emanates from you as a master copy, and then they can then pass their version of that down to their various gyms through their specific federation. But they must also implement the base level standard of protocols that MASA has dictated.
Absolutely correct. So we have an agreement in place where all those people have written to us saying that they will abide by our protocols, that they will enforce and educate their members, etc. Once those agreements have been signed between MASA and our members, we then issued them with a style or federation certificate, and then an editable version that they could then roll out to their various gyms under them. We also put on a test online that people could download and do, which would help them to check whether their members had actually gone through all that information, and use it to help not just the instructors but also the staff. You know, it's a team effort in most gyms. So, for example, in my own gym, I sat down with my caretaker, with my cleaner, with my assistant instructors, and we all went through all of that stuff, all that information together. And then everybody wrote the test, the online test, and then we marked that and went through the answers together, just to make sure that everybody's on board with the importance of all those safety issues.
Just interrupt you there. That test is a requirement that everybody that does that online test needs to pass it 100%.
That's correct.
And that is an absolute non-negotiable. Does that mean it's only for the owners and the instructors? Or as you said, you've got your general managers, you've got your cleaners, you've got a whole bunch of other people in the ecosystem within that gym. Does everybody have to do that test and pass it 100%?
As we've said to you, we've left that up to the federations and the styles to administer that part of it. But that has been our suggestion and a recommendation, that at least the instructor, who's mostly, for most gyms, also the compliance officer, has to write that test and get 100%. There are also other ways for our gyms to get compliance. There's quite a bit of health and safety aspects to be considered, and there's sort of, as a biohazard, this pandemic, you can do training at external sources and obtain significant certificates and clearance that way. And quite a few of our instructors have taken that to the next level, quite a few of our gyms. And so we've encouraged that. In fact, our president, Master Louis Viviers, is actively involved in actually rolling out some of that sort of more advanced training for the different gyms. But I didn't want, as I said, to make it impossible. People need to get their businesses started. It's literally lives on the line here. And we had to obviously make sure that it was safe. And so that test is a tool for our federations and our styles to use to help to educate themselves, their instructors and their staff.
So looking at all of that information that you've said, the files and files, the multiple chapters that you've put together, to reopen, facilities are required to have what you've called an essential kit. That essential kit consists of masks, sanitizers, the fact that every person coming into that gym needs to have their own towel, their own water bottles, their own training equipment, no longer any sharing of training equipment, which has been a norm in many martial arts gyms since time immemorial. That's the essential bit. That's the non-negotiable, I understand, to be. Without that, no facility may ever open.
Well, the non-negotiables revolve around sort of three things. So the first thing is, yes, the personal protection equipment. Okay. The second thing is the pre-screening. So when you come in, you need to have your temperature taken. You need to have filled out a pre-questionnaire that you don't have any of the symptoms, a dry cough, all those ones that we know. It's quite common knowledge, and you will get a temperature check. And then the third thing is the track and trace. So it's been very important that you keep a register of all your students, when and where they come in, and all that kind of thing. And then the normal things inside that you would expect, the social distancing, spacing out. But it's basically those three things: the personal protection, the pre-screening, and then the track and trace, so that we can make sure that everybody is kept safe, and if there are any incidences, that we can get in touch with everybody that's involved.
You make it sound so simple, just talking about three things, but looking at the detail here, we're going to have to unpack that detail when we come back from this break. So don't go away. We're going to be right back after this and show you just exactly how much detail these businesses have to tick, all these boxes, before they're allowed to open their doors. We'll be back right after this.
Introducing the new, fresh, and exciting Rhapsody of Realities app 3.0. The Messenger Angel Rhapsody of Realities just got a new updated app for reading Rhapsody Daily articles. Enjoy reading and listening to your Rhapsody on the go while taking advantage of these amazing features. Brand new design. Enjoy the new design built to take advantage of the latest technologies to make your app experience awesome. It's simpler and easier to use. With just one click, you have access to the article for the day. It's that easy. Sync notes. Pin down moments of divine inspiration while studying the devotional and sync them to the cloud to be available anywhere, anytime. A new interactive store. Visit the store and get all books by Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakhilome for people of all ages and download them to your library. Store your favorite books in an easy access folder. Enjoy unlimited access when you upgrade to our premium subscription. Gain access to the complete package of Rhapsody of Realities every month. This includes the entire month's devotional on the go with free audio devotional add-ons. Track your reading habits daily with our automated calendar and identify unread days for the devotional. Read further studies right within the app. Download the new Rhapsody mobile app today for free and be inspired anytime and everywhere on the go. Available on the Google Play Store.
Right, welcome back to Fite Sports Uncovered. The second part of our in-depth unpack in terms of MASA, that's Martial Arts South Africa. My guest today, Master Gregory Hart. He's been the compliance officer, if I can call him that. In fact, he's the General Secretary, but all of the work that he's been doing is essentially being the compliance officer for martial arts in South Africa in preparing all of the gyms to get back to opening up, to be allowed to start earning an income, to be allowed to start training their students. And we know all of this following on that letter on the 7th of July where the minister said, open up, get going, but strict protocols. And just before the break, you will have remembered that Greg was breaking down that only 3 things. No, it's not just 3 things, because if I look at all of the detail that he's put together that every single one of the gyms out there have to comply with, let's break it down. Yes, the essential kit. But Greg, then we start looking at things like pre-preparation.
We realized that you're going to have to get the cooperation of our members.
Yeah.
That you can only put so much onto the instructors. All of us as sportsmen now have to take some responsibility for ourselves and for our children. So we thought what we needed to do is, what do you need to get right at home before you leave? So make sure that you're already dressed, that you've got your personal protection stuff, that you've got your own sanitizer. There will obviously be some at the gym, but it's always better if you have your own kit, have it pre-packed. Then what to do at the arrival. As I said, we mentioned it before. How do we get the people inside? How do you do the pre-screening? All that kind of stuff. They must arrive with that symptom checker. So we've given them a whole checklist that the student has to complete prior to arrival. And the only thing that then gets completed on arrival is the temperature check. And then they have to go in, and there's a whole on-the-mat protocol.
Before we even get there, there's an even bigger concept that still has to be dealt with by me wanting to go and train. And that's the concept of the waiver. In my mind, I need to make sure that when I step into that gym, okay, I am potentially putting myself at risk, irrespective of what the gym does. We all know this. This is an airborne disease, as we are led to believe through everything that we know. But there's this concept of the waiver. Your documentation gives those gyms the documentation to allow for students and also owners, trainers, etc., to sign a waiver. How different is that waiver from the existing? Because we all know contact sports, combat sports is inherently dangerous. You could get a knock. This obviously adds an additional aspect to that waiver.
Yes. So, speaking to my own waiver, it has that exact line in it. Martial arts is not a sport without risk of injury. And you specifically accept that risk when you step into the gym. And we've now had to add into that not only, physical, but you've now run the risk of there's a potential or a small chance to get COVID-19 coming into your martial arts and your sport. For us, we don't believe the risk is any higher than a trip to clicks or certainly not more than going to school or anything else like that. So we believe, because it is a lifestyle for so many people, because sport is so important to us, because South Africans like to be healthy and fit, and that's your best defense against a disease like this, is to be healthy and fit, to fight it off. And the results have shown that 99% of people who are relatively healthy and fit are able to fight off this disease, no matter their age almost. And so that's been very, very important to us, that we get people back to training, because we feel that the benefits to our members. And you also talked about the sanity, the mental aspect. I think people are going slowly stir crazy. Cabin fever is not a joke anymore. People understand that. And you're, in these stressful times, your sport, your martial art is your release. It's one of the ways that people use to manage their stress. So we think it's very, very important for people's mental health, for their physical health, and for their overall well-being, so that if they do contract this disease, at least they're the normal, fit, healthy people, well-balanced, that they would have been under normal circumstances. Not these poor, scary-looking people after 6 weeks of lockdown.
That need a haircut.
Yeah.
So coming back to the process, I've now decided I'll sign the waiver. I need to get back into training. I've done all my stuff. I've got my own gear. I'm healthy. I've looked at myself. I've tested myself in the morning when I've woken up. I don't have a dry cough. I feel good enough to come and train. I arrive. There's obviously specific arrival protocols that your process dictates that need to be followed. And once again, like you've said, the federations can modify those. But
even the individual gyms and instructors, they need to make it work for themselves. But that symptom checker is an essential, and the temperature check as well.
And then the logbook as well is absolutely critical in case there is a positive.
Now, fortunately, martial arts is a very disciplined sport, and because most of us have grading requirements and syllabus requirements, attendance is a normal thing to take attendance, and we have all the information to track and trace our members. So for us, that wasn't too big of an issue, but it's very important that that register now has a second column where you have to tick that you have received that symptom checker and that student has passed that initial screening process. So it's now a two-step process when you take your register.
Okay, so now we're in. I've done all my checks. I've passed all of those. You then have on-mat protocols. Those protocols still no spectators, no sharing of equipment, and no partnering unless it's a husband and wife team coming.
Come out of the same house, two brothers or something like that. Yes.
Then we have off-mat protocols. Now those off-mat protocols talk about no water stations may be used, so you must bring your own water bottle. There's no sort of communal anything in a gym anymore, and no restroom use. However, there is a restroom protocol that says restrooms can be used, but not for showering, not for changing. If you do need to go to the bathroom in
a perfect world, we've all jumped into the car with our kids. Has everyone been to the loo and half an hour out? What happens?
Yeah, Daddy, I need to one of those.
So yes, it has to be realistic.
So in those restroom protocols, one person at a time. And once again, these are all open to modification by the federations and the gyms, how it works for them. But this is the general guideline. Yes. And then there's departure protocols, and following those departure protocols, the facility needs to essentially be cleaned, because particularly if there's another class coming straight after that.
You know, where you've got equipment that doesn't move, like your hanging bags and stuff like that, you would obviously, for the duration of that class, allocate only one person to, say, work on that heavy bag. And then that bag, like you say, has to be cleaned immediately straight afterwards. So we've encouraged the individual who used that bag to straight away,
to be the responsible person.
To get it cleaned. And before you start on a bag, you also clean it as well. So it's cleaned before and after each and every training session, and that's quite right. And the thing that it's impacted the most is, all our sport has always got such a nice social aspect. So before, there was never really a problem where two classes, sort of one was leaving as another one was arriving, and there was a little bit of social and high and whatever. We've now had to space our classes out and allow time for the first class to leave before the next class arrives, so that you don't have too much interaction and too many people in too much of a confined area. The other big aspect that they've asked us to look at is ventilation. As you said, it's an airborne disease, and it's not great now in winter because we want to have all the windows closed and try and keep ourselves warm and toasty. But they've asked us, please, to open up the windows in our gym, to turn on the air conditioners, and to get that ventilation working in our facilities.
Added to that, the action plan that's required from the gyms in case of exposure, how they mitigate that going forward, what happens after it. All of this is stuff that no gym has ever had to do in the past. And like you say, in the past, arriving at my favorite class used to literally be, I would arrive just in time. This is now tantamount to taking a flight. We need to get there hours before. We need to check in our baggage. We need to make sure our stuff is in order before we're even allowed to step onto the mat or into the ring, whatever it is that we're going to be doing for that particular class. So the costs involved here, the costs involved here for a gym, are we not off the back of an environment where they've already financially hamstrung, starting to add additional costs, admittedly required costs?
This is something that we have considered. And that's why we've asked people to, wherever possible, to bring their own thing. Because it's not possible for all the gyms to install a hand sanitizer at 2,000 Rand for one of those pump stands, or 4,000 Rand for a unit that sticks on a wall, things like that. And also, we have to work with schools and gyms and recreation centres and stuff like that. So those places all have to pay for steam cleaning and fogging and all that kind of stuff. This can run into thousands of rands, and you're quite right. And the biggest fallout from it's going to be like some of our development gymnasiums and stuff like that, where things like sharing of equipment, was a necessity because you only had limited stuff available in order to meet the needs of your sort of more underprivileged martial artists. Those clubs are not going to be up and running at the moment. But my feeling is that if we can save the big commercial clubs, hopefully we'll get back on our feet and be back in a position where we can once again spread ourselves out and help the smaller gyms, the development gyms and those kind of things to get back up and running on their feet. But we first have to save, literally, martial arts at this stage in South Africa.
The big aspect of this is that this is not a once-off thing. This is something that all owners, trainers, people associated with the gyms have got to continuously keep themselves up to date with any evolving protocols. I'm assuming MASA will keep the various federations up to date with any sort of changes in those protocols. We do know, as you've said, we're coming to the end of the show, so just a quick recap. There are certain non-negotiable protocols that you have put in place, which irrespective will not be swayed upon in any way, shape or form. The big thing is that what are you going to be doing to ensure that those protocols are maintained? Because at the end of the day, I could be one of those guys that I just want to get started to make my money, but once it's going, my members don't seem to be fussed that I've stopped this or I've stopped that, so we'll just carry on regardless. How are you going to manage that? Because it's quite clear that if Department of Sports, Arts and Culture sees that these guys are not doing it, it's going to be closed down again.
We've made it very clear to our members exactly that. If we get an active case of COVID and it's tracked down to one of our gyms or studios or dojos, that's going to create huge fallout for everybody. So, as I said before, I think we're fortunate in that martial arts is extremely safety conscious and people are generally very disciplined when it comes. You can't, if you're doing any kind of sparring, even when you consider it light contact or whatever, there's an element of risk. And you need to have safety equipment, you need to have protocols in place, you need to have your trained referees and personnel. So we feel confident that our styles and our members will administer that for us and on our behalf. And the tools that we've given them are very thorough. As you said, they are comprehensive.
Yes.
They are comprehensive. But we've also broken it down to this is the protocol before, during and after, 5 or 6 easy points to follow. We've given them the forms, we've given them stuff so that they don't have to become an absolute expert in every aspect of the thing without and making it too onerous for them to open up. So what are we doing to enforce it? Well, it's an ongoing process. All our documents are live online so that if we have any updates or tweaking to those products, we can immediately put up the new version and it's immediately accessible to all of our members straight away. They don't even have to go through their federation or the organization for that. As I simply sent the link to you and you had access.
Yeah.
We've done it like that. I think it's a very smart way to do things. And that's where what I've been busy with now is talking to our members and making sure that they have made sure that their members have done those tests, that they have read the information, that they have signed an agreement with our member organizations that they will follow those protocols. Other than that, it's just like what you have out there in the general public. There's 30% of the people who still haven't left their homes. There's 30 of us who are getting on with our lives because we need to, but we're being smart about it and we're doing clever things like wearing masks and applying social distancing, sanitizing, etc. And then there's 30% of people who just want to
not do anything.
Pretend it doesn't exist, yes. And we are hoping that won't be the case with any of our members. If that does happen, we will come down very hard on them as a style and as a system, and they will lose their certification. They'll no longer be able to operate under our auspices.
Wow. Well, there you have it. Lots of work has gone into getting fight gyms, getting contact sports facilities up and running. You've heard it right here. From the guys that have been putting it together, the guys that have been liaising with the Department of Sport. Fantastic insights. We're definitely not going to be stopping to talk to MASA. Lots of insight, lots of information sitting right here in the studio. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you've got a better sense of all the work that's gone in to try and get contact sports and combat sports facilities up and running. Greg, thanks so much for your time. Really, really do appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, Mark.
Can we do this again? Okay, cool. I was going to give it a big bow, okay, as we could in martial arts. But until next week, protect yourselves at all times. We're out.